This is One-on-One.
That's good acting, man.
I go to Atlantic City all the time, like, are you the guy? I go, no, I'm not.
This is one you can't afford to miss.
They thought that I wouldn't survive it, but I knew I would.
Welcome to One-on-One. I'm Steve Adubato. Let me introduce you to a very special guest. First time with us. I have a feeling it won't be the last. She's Lisa Parles, practice group leader, disabilities law group. And the name of your firm is?
Cohn, Lifflin, Perlman, Herman, and Knopf.
You know why I had you do that, right?
Make sure I didn't forget anything.
Yeah, so it's on you if you didn't get it right. Listen, you've been committed to the autistic community for many years for personal reasons.
That's correct.
Because of your son.
Mm-hmm.
But what have you found over time that is missing when it comes to the way we as a society deal with housing and other needs for those who are dealing with autism as they get older?
In the crisis for services, housing is probably the most pressing.
Housing number one.
Absolutely. And within that is adult services. So we've seen tremendous growth on a national level for programs for educational, but for the adult population we have very, very little. And
Why?
in New Jersey in particular.
Why, Lisa?
Well, I think it's a combination of things. I think that in New Jersey, one of the problems is that we have a great number of developmental centers. We still have those large institutions, which really stops the growth and development of innovative programs and community-based programs. So it's New Jersey, it's not a money issue. We spend a great deal of money on these type of housing, but they're really antiquated, segregated programs that are inefficient and expensive.
Why did we do that in the first place? Why did we begin to build and to run those homes when, in fact, assume you're right for a second, many people agree with you. Why did we do that?
Well, in the 1800s, we did it across the country. In fact, one of our developmental centers that we're trying to close now opened in 1888. So it was what we used to think was the appropriate thing to do with people with disabilities, which was basically put them away. They're essentially institutions, you know, not have them be members of the community, have them have everything done in these closed communities, including, you know, that's where they would get their medical care or their haircut. So nationally it was the trend, but New Jersey has just lagged behind moving away from that. In fact, other than Texas, we have the greatest number of people in public institutions with developmental disabilities. On the report card, we're number 49 for the highest per capita of people that still are in these segregated communities. And they're, again, very, very expensive. We spend hundreds of thousands of dollars. There's been many studies that show that we can do it more effectively and for less dollars in the community.
Your own experience, describe it.
Well, I have a 21-year-old child with autism, and one of the saddest things that we had to do this year was he did go into a residential program, and he actually had to leave the state.
Go to Florida.
He went to Florida, and that is, I think, a terrible tragedy, that when a child has to be separated from their family.
How'd you deal with it?
Not very well in the beginning. It was truly, truly heartbreaking. It got easier with time. It's been just about 3 months because he got better. He was unfortunately one of those kids with multiple problems. So in addition to the autism, had complex medical needs, and we didn't have a lot of options in New Jersey. In my practice, we actually stopped counting the number of teens and adults, young adults in crisis, that had to go outside of the state.
They leave their families. They leave the people they know and love to go to another state to get what?
Unfortunately, better services. We're just not doing a good job for those with significant needs. We either offer the extremes. Either we offer these segregated institutions where, you know, again, we spend hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. There's been a movement against closing the developmental centers. They're heavily unionized. We have, you know, many of them, several unions within one developmental center. Not cost effective. I have, had one story of a parent whose child was in a developmental center, not by choice, but again, there was not an alternative. And in addition to them spending over $300,000 a year for the developmental center, her school district was spending almost $200,000 to try to create a school-age program for him. So one of the things that they did was they had a teacher come in to continue one of his skills. He was very good at stocking shelves. He liked order. So that in one of their visits, the teacher had him stock the shelves. And when it was finished, the staff from the developmental center came in and said the teacher had to unstock the shelves because it was a unionized job.
And the lesson there is
that we're worrying about jobs and union jobs as opposed to taxpayer dollars and quality services.
a different model. Talk to us about the Bergen United Way.
Right.
And the role they're playing in this new initiative called?
Very special homes.
Very special homes.
That's right. United Way is really trying to change policy in New Jersey. And I will say that though personally it was a terribly, terribly sad year because we did lose our son to an out-of-state placement, professionally and as an advocate, it's been an exciting year because we do have actors in New Jersey that are trying to build capacity here, are trying to make more options for people with autism in particular, but also other developmental disabilities.
So people watching right now, I mean, in many states we're seeing, primarily New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, but just for New York and New Jersey, well, stay in New Jersey for a second.
Sure.
We put up a number right now. Is it the United Way number? Is that what we're doing, folks? The United Way website. They reach out for the United Way. What do they get?
Well, what United Way is doing is they're bringing a number of groups together. They're bringing together private providers that can provide services for people with complex behaviors or medical needs in addition to their developmental disability. But they're also creating incredible partnerships with towns and communities. So one of their projects is a project in Allendale called Orchard Commons, which was a wonderful example of the town donating some funds from their low-income housing fund, of the United Way putting some funds towards building it, and eventually our housing trust fund, which is a state source. We have had that for a number of years, but a very small percentage have gone to people with developmental disabilities.
Mike, excuse me, before I let you at it, why can't, I know there's more to say, and by the way, log on to our website to find out more. We'll connect you to organizations involved in autism. It's a very big priority for our production team. But I have to ask you, what would it take to have the leaders of the state say, this is a crisis, we are not doing nearly enough? The idea that Lisa's son and others would leave the state I mean, come on. What does Florida have that we don't have? I mean, it's ridiculous. What would it take to cause that kind of crisis and reaction?
Well, I have to say the Christie administration has been recognizing and addressing it, in that they announced a very large initiative to create over 600 housing units for this population. We have a waiting list in New Jersey of over 8,000, and we've been moving, 50, 100 people a year.
Playing catch up.
Exactly.
Way behind.
We're so behind. It really is of crisis proportions. And also the out-of-state placements, we don't get federal matching dollars for. So if we would keep people in state, we could be placing 2 people for the price of one.
So economically it makes more sense.
Absolutely.
Lisa Parles, the initiative is very important, and I promise you that we'll stay on top of it. It will not be the last program we do, and you have an open invitation.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa.
Thanks.
Stay right there. Stay with us one-on-one. We'll continue right after this.
If you would like more information on this program, or if you'd like to express an opinion, email us at info@caucusnj.org and visit us online at oneonone.org.